So Louis Gohmert is possibly the dumbest congressman to have ever served. And he was on an interview with C-SPAN's Washington Journal host Greta Brawner. Now, of course, he will go on to prove how stupid he really is during this interview.
What did you make of the Pope recently saying that the world needs to act on climate change, and said that God will judge those on how they leave the earth?
And he, he's the Pope. The trouble is, he has been persuaded that climate change is something that's dramatically affecting the planet right now. He's bought into all this. But we have had popes that made enormous mistakes that were influenced by the world around them. But if he'll just really objectively look at the data and see that the world is really not warming, and that's why supporters of global warming had to change the name to climate change, because it was going back and forth.
Wait a minute, I thought the Pope was infallible. Oh, I guess not. At least according to Louis Gohmert and a lot of these Republicans that are now saying, when it comes to Pope Francis, oh, he's wrong. He's wrong on he's wrong on poverty. He's wrong on climate change. He's wrong on when we call when he said that weapons manufacturers could not be Christians. No, absolutely wrong. It's funny how when they have a pope that agrees with their extreme ideology, that they are somehow, those are the ones that are infallible. Huh, that's interesting how that goes. Now, he also says, did you hear it when he said, if you just look at the data objectively, you'll see that the world is really not warming. Well, the evidence seems to point to the other conclusion. The world is warming. But this is what they like to do. They like to cherry pick the data. Well, I've got a nice little graph here that I want you to take a look at. And if you zoom on in a very small portion of this graph, you could make an argument, well, it's really not warming all that much. See, the temperature actually went down a little bit. But then you zoom out and you look at it across a long amount of time. You can see that no, the climate is indeed warming. Both land and sea temperatures are rising. So of course, he's absolutely wrong. So now he goes on to say something even more ridiculous about climate change. Check this out.
Climate change, I don't see it so much as a problem. Where I live in East Texas, we have climate change. I totally believe that. I know that to be a fact. In fact, we have it 4 times a year.
Where I live in East Texas, we've got climate change 4 times a year. Take that, liberals. Take that, scientists. Really? That's his evidence. Oh, climate change. Of course, it happens 4 times a year. Louis Gohmert is the stupidest congressman alive. I swear. I swear. Conflating the seasons with global climate change. The seasons in East Texas was global climate change. Is one of the most ridiculous things I've ever seen. I can't imagine anyone with 2 brain cells to rub together that are actually like, yes, Louis, absolutely. We have 4 seasons in Texas. Climate change. That's our climate change. Everything else, I'm not worried about that. This is natural seasonal changes. Oh, ridiculous. Now, he's got a little bit more to say, and now he's going to conflate climate deniers with Galileo. Listen to this.
So many places do not even allow an opposing viewpoint. Conferences don't allow an opposing viewpoint. Since when? Well, that's a rhetorical question. I was going to say, since when does science not allow opposing viewpoints? Well, they didn't allow Galileo to make an opposing viewpoint. There were a lot of accurate opposing viewpoints that weren't allowed at the time that were later allowed to come in, and people wondered, how in the world did that whole group of educated people come to the wrong conclusion?
And that's probably the most ridiculous thing of all. Saying that Galileo was a scientist. He was fighting against the church. You know, the very thing that you're on the side of. You're on the side of misinformation. You're on the side of ignorance. And what's funny is that in some ways the roles are kind of reversed, because now you have the church saying, yes, climate change is a thing and we have to do something about it. And here's Louis Gohmert on the other side saying, the church is wrong. I'm Galileo. Yeah, but the difference is Galileo actually had facts. This is so incredibly ironic. And of course that irony is lost on Louis Gohmert. And finally, it takes a lot to earn the title of dumbest congressman in America. But as you can see, Louis Gohmert, he's working really hard at keeping that title.